Get wide. Good morning, coaches. Today I'm going to be talking about a common rule that we often see used and hear get wide when we're trying to build out of the back, and how getting wide is maybe a kind of a limiting way of getting our players to think about the purpose of getting wide. You'll kind of go through, practices, and you'll see in games, and if you watch, especially like when goal kicks are made, you'll hear this phrase repeated quite a lot: get wide, get wide. And you'll see if the goalkeeper has the ball, you'll see that cue, get wide, and our defenders do exactly that. The problem, however, is, what's the purpose of getting wide? Well, if getting wide is to, ideally, we're thinking we want to get around the opponent, spread the opponent out so that there is space, we're trying to make space. What happens, however, if the defenders simply man mark those players? If we don't have an underlying principle from which players understand why we get wide, they might be limited, because once they get wide, and there's no opportunities to play, and all they can do is maintain possession because the ball gets pinged here and there's no space and they have to play the ball right back. Eventually this is going to end in a turnover, a throw-in, or that transition to the opponent's team getting a shot or a goal. So if we can help our players understand the purpose behind the action of getting wide, that might be able to create more opportunities and have the emergence of different qualities or behaviors. So if we think, general principles, when we think in the defensive half of the field, when we have the ball, at minimum we want to maintain possession. If we have a situation like this, we want to maintain possession, we can do that in a very nice little diamond, and we can ping the ball back and forth. But beyond that, when we're trying to then, progress the ball, first we have to find an imbalance. How do we find an imbalance in play? Well, in language for players, we want to make space. Ultimately, by getting wide, we're taking advantage of space, but first we need to make space. If there is no space from which to play, how do we make space? How, if we are set up like this, and I'm talking to my red team and a red goalie and my red defenders, how do we make space? Right now, we are not taking advantage of space because we have effectively created a situation where there is no space. How do we take space? At this point, our defenders are going to look around and go, where is the space? Where is the space? How do we make space? There is no space. How do we make space? At this point, we might give them some specific ideas on how that might occur. How could we make space? Outside defender, how might you create space from which our goalkeeper could dribble to take space? How could you make space? What if you made a darting run into this corner right here, and you checked in right next to the opposing 9? What would happen if you ran into this space here? Now, guess what? Where is there space? Where is there space? Well, now we've created a pocket by your run into the middle that we can now take advantage of. So if we can create space, if we can make space by making a run and dragging a defender out of where they want to be, what does that allow us to do? Well, that allows us a couple of opportunities to progress the ball by taking space, because we've created an imbalance. Now our goalkeeper, if they so chose, could dribble into this space where we have now found it, or our 9 could be checking into the space that has been created. So when we think about the language that we're using for our players, and this is kind of a basic example, but when we give our players instructions in the form of rules, get wide, how is that going to translate into the next step? Once they've gotten wide and the defending team is right on top of them, how can we adjust their attention? How can we create an intentionality? How do we make space to get them to seek ways in which they can then play to find imbalance, to progress the ball? How can we think about principles of play as opposed to rules of play? Get wide.